2.5, 3 years together every day. And we developed a very, very close bond. And I can't believe he's gone, but Rick touched me in so many ways. And he touched so many people in so many ways. And I'm forever blessed just to have him in my life, you know. It's hard to go out there and play golf with you guys and know that when you guys went on vacation, that was the last round of golf we played with him. We just thought it was the last round until he got back, you know. And it's different. And it's been really hard for me. I've never lost anyone that's close to me before in my life. I've been blessed that way. But these pictures are amazing. It just feels like he's just going to walk in the door, you know. And it's tough. And I can't imagine what Lori and Chelsea are going through. But no, you guys, anything I can ever do for you guys, you know I'm here. And I would do anything for you guys. Just as Rick would for me or anyone else, you know. So, thank you for coming. Thank you for loving Rick, letting Rick be a part of your life. Whether you believed in all his beliefs or not, he was still a friend that you want to have, he would have your back, you know? You just gotta sometimes say, Rick, pump the brakes a little bit, today's the day, you know? When I bring a new guy golfing out, we get ready to tee off, the first thing I say to Rick is, I go, Rick, not today, okay? You can say okay till about the third hole, and then he's going to stop. You know, and one of the things that makes me laugh is it reminds me of the party that you had. And he got into some discussions about things, and he comes back to golf the next day, and he tells him what happens, and he said, Brett, I'm not here to make friends and influence people. I'm just here to influence people. You know, and that's Rick. That was Rick. You know, he'd say what he wanted to say whenever he wanted to say it, but and he was the most amazing guy I've ever met. And looking at these pictures, I guess I can't believe he's gone, but he will forever be in my heart. I'm forever blessed for the days that we spent together, the time we got to spend together, which is a lot more than most people because we were together every day. And for that, I also thank Lori for that, because I know Jennifer ain't happy about it. But anyway, thank you for coming. Lori, I love you guys.
Love you.
I met Rick back in 1984, and I met him at a church, and we got to get to know each other, and we were on fire for the Lord Jesus, preach the gospel, and so we would go out street preaching and miracles, signs, and whatnot. God was there as young Christians, as dumb as I think we were at the time, but we were willing and obedient as what we could. And Rick said to me, we were up in Seattle when we met, and he says, hey, why don't you come down to Phoenix? So that was, and I said, sure, why not? I was like 20 at the time, and we jumped in the van and came down to Phoenix and started going to church together down here. And that's when he met Lori at a church function, and Lori saw something amazing about Rick, and so they wound up getting married, and it was so that's. And Chelsea came along in 1989, I think, or something. And so yeah, Rick's just an amazing, one-of-a-kind guy. I was blessed to know him. I called him regularly throughout the years, all these years. He'd always pick up, he would always answer, he'd always give me some advice. Hey, you're going through this, here's how you deal with it. So Rick, just an amazing guy and a dear friend to me. So if anybody has any other stories that you'd like to share about Rick, or memories, or thoughts or feelings about him, we welcome that dearly. So thank you all for being here.
James, you knew Rick longer than me.
Yeah, I knew Rick longer than Lori, so yeah, Rick is just an amazing preacher, and he studied pretty much every morning for hours on what he was doing.
Some of you might have been lucky enough to get some PDF files that he had sent.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys are lucky because my husband had a really good joke, and it was that we were gonna play one last time for everybody.
My name is Ruben, and I met Rick.
We had a threesome, he was the oddball. He was odd. Second hole, he told me how stupid Americans are, and I'm like, who the heck is this guy? But the one thing about Rick was the way he could tell a story. Nobody can tell a story. Not only could he tell stories, he had really good stories. He'd be in the middle of it, well, I went down here and da-da-da. There's always the da-da-da thing, he always did that. The one thing he told me when I first met him, he goes, my wife is so amazing. I wouldn't trade it for 12 million. He said, well, wait till you meet her. Okay, whatever. Well, thank God I had a girlfriend at the time, because we got to couple up and do stuff. Otherwise, Lori, I would have never got as close. Thank God I was in a relationship where we got to do all this great stuff together. His birthday, we went down and had that barbecue down there at that little town that day with Kevin and Renee and all that stuff. Got to meet Chelsea because I had Manisa. We stopped and saw the baby, saw the rock shop, stopped twice. One day you weren't there, we just dropped the baby clothes off. I don't know what else to say about it, Ray. Thank you guys for coming. I think Lori and Chelsea just want to move on, and we're here to help you do it. We love you guys.
Yeah, so my name is Greg, and I want to tell you a couple of stories about Rick. We're pretty cool. I was, I think it was 1985, if I get it right, 1984, 1985, and I was helping an ex-partner up on his roof, and it was on the block, actually, where Rick lived, and I didn't know Rick. And so I'm up there kind of giving the guys a hard time and, being kind of more of a jerk, and I'm doing some shingles up there, and I see these two Mormon missionary guys. They're walking down the street, and one was a black guy, one was a white guy, and so I was studying it like crazy because I had been in Concerned Christians, helping them out, which is an outreach group to mostly ex-Mormons. And so I'm there on the roof, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we gotta reach you guys, okay? Heck with the shingles. So I start going down the ladder. Right as I go down the ladder, and I end up with these guys and say, hey, I got some questions to ask you. This little red Z24 pulls up. And this guy pops out of the car real fast. It's Rick. And he comes around the car, and he's just, he first looks at me, he's like, walks right up to me, and he says, he goes, man, you saved? I said, yeah, absolutely, brother. And he says, okay, and he grabs my hand and says, let's do this. And we go in, sit on these guys for 45 minutes or whatever. And that was the start of a relationship with Rick. And we got together a lot, during those times. That was right, I think, right as Rick met Lori. And so we were together for off and on, almost all the time back then. When he had a house in Scottsdale and selling used cars behind the Cadillac dealership.
He got me a license.
Yeah.
Run.
Yeah. And one other time that was kind of very interesting was Rick called me up one day and goes, Greg, I just took in this boat, it's a 19-foot Bayliner. He says, you gotta think about buying this thing. And I'm like, I don't know anything about boats. I've never even driven a boat. He says, well, let's go and let's use your truck and go and take it out to the lake, Canyon Lake. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So we got in, we got the boat hooked up and took my Toyota pickup and drove it out to Canyon Lake, and we put it in the water and start this up. It's like a, nice eight-cylinder engine. And we're tooling around the lake, and all of a sudden the boat starts to sink. It's taking the water. I'm like, what do we do? And so we go over to the marina, and the boat's sitting there. It's still on, but it's filling up with water. And I run like crazy into the mechanics shop up there, and I said, hey, can you help me? Oh, we're booked up. No. Can you help me see what's wrong with the boat? Oh, we're booked up. I said, well, hey, if you want to see a boat sinking, we got a boat sinking right over here. So he goes, well, okay. He runs out. He says, oh man, you got a lot of problems. The water's over your alternator and everything else. You probably need a full, he says, have you checked the plug? And we look at Rick, the plug? He says, yeah, you need to drive that boat real fast, okay, and it will empty the water if the plug is out. And so what we did is we drove that boat real fast across the lake, emptied out most of all the water, okay? I ran off the boat, got my truck, went in between everybody, back in the thing up to get it up on the ramp, pull it out, got all the water out, found the plug, put the plug in, and we said, hey, why don't we take the boat out for a while? So we took the boat out for a while, and he says, we go over to where they're diving off the cliffs. He's like, we got to witness to these people. Let's do it, So, these people start swimming up to the boat, like, hey, do you want to ride? And Rick says, hey, come on in, you want to ride? One of the girls was like topless, okay? And so we're out there, we're like, okay, well, hey, and so we take off one of our shirts and you're gonna have to wear this if you come on the boat, okay? And so she's okay, and they're all kind of into the whole, free love, that whole scene. This is about 1990, 91. Anyway, get him on the boat. Rick starts preaching, as usual. Starts talking about Jesus, starts talking to him. And they're just arguing. They're just throwing out all kinds of questions and everything else. Anyway, long story short, about an hour later, after we kind of tooled around for a little while and came back, the rest of the people jumped out of the boat, but the girl who had been topless, she jumped in the water, she threw the shirt back to us, and she says, you know what? She goes, I will never forget you guys. She goes, and what you taught me about Jesus, I'll never forget that. So, what I want to say is, when I look back at Rick, I look back at a life really well lived for Christ. He talked it, he did it, and we're gonna miss him like crazy. A lot of people will miss him like crazy, but he's in a real good place now. He's partying with the Father, and I'm sure he's telling stories. He's really he's telling stories. Yeah, he's telling stories. So then there was so many more stories. It's just a part, but I'll get somebody else the floor. Thanks for letting me share.
Pray about, I don't want to reveal the year because we're gonna find out how old Chelsea is. But back probably about 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, he was a good salesman, I'll tell you that right now. That guy could sell ice cream to an Eskimo and fish to a whale. Real good guy. Well, we started off in bad terms, I came over from California, so he's most of all, the people that I hate the most, a car salesman, and no pun intended. But he sold me a car that was junk, right? But you gotta wait for the story there. He's a super good guy. He's not gonna end bad here. So what happened is that I took the car, and Lord remember when I was buying it, right? And I'm thinking like, man, dude, what? Okay, all right, I want it, because he has a big sales pitch that I'm not gonna reveal. But I got it. But I bought it, right? So I take it, and as soon as I'm driving it, when I tested it, he said it was going like. Oh, he goes, don't worry, that's nothing. I said, okay, that's mine, I'll take it. But the van was it was like splitting in the middle, you know what I mean? But this is what happened. So I took it home and I told him, hey man, this is messed up. You told me a junker. He said, don't worry, Ruben. It's just coming over. So he returned $500 back to me. He said, here, you can fix it. And then I said, no, it's not going to pass emissions now because it's even smoky. He said, come on, Ruben, let's go. So we went to paste it. He said, you don't need no smile. Go over there and paste it. Let's go. So we went over there. People like, how you going to do it, dude? I said, how you going to do it, man? You don't live over there. Don't worry, Ruben, man. He's always like, well, Ruben, come on, don't worry. So we signed off, and he gave it, he ended up signing it over to me. Everything was cool, smog and everything. So then we started building that relationship. We started working together. Businesses, Rick, businesses like crazy. Tell him about a business, he's on you. They're like, okay, what is it, man? Let's see it. Let's go. Show me the plan. Because he was a real go-getter. But the most things that I remember from him, when he was always very caring and very loving. We stopped seeing each other for a long time. And about 2 years ago, I think? 3 years ago, around there, he went and looked for me, and he found me. And the guy, man, I couldn't believe it, what he did. He went back and returned all the money that I had given him for the land. That was, to me, wow, that's an impact. And I go, man, nobody does that. That's so honorable, because he's such a great guy. I guess the most important thing is that he was a real loving person and loved Christ like crazy, like he was showing it. He was not only preaching it, and he was very, very good at preaching and telling stories like that. But the one thing that I can tell you is this, that I think we all need to get on the boat here with Rick in the sense of what he told us. See, the Bible says that, for God so loved the world, it's a simple scripture with a lot of meaning, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. Romans 10:13, whoever calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved. See, a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on salvation, and you have to do so many rituals, this and that. That's not necessary. Salvation is a free gift, and it's not for religious people. It's for people that want to have a relationship completely overtaken by the Lord Jesus Christ. He said, if whoever comes to me, I will never let him go. And you know what never means? Never means never in God's hand. That means eternity with him. See, whoever believes in me, he says, I will give you life. Whoever eats of my bread, you will never have hunger anymore. Whoever drinks of my water, it says, you know what? The flowing rivers of water will flow through you. That means the Holy Spirit, God in you, and he will take care of you. He will save you. Ephesians 2:8-9-10, it says, for you are saved by grace. It is a gift of God. It's not a matter of you working. It's not a matter of your hard work and trying to help an old lady across the street, and that's it. You know what I mean? No, it's not about works. Salvation is completely a free gift. Not one iota of work do you have to put into it, but you do have to believe and trust him, and he will save you, because salvation is by grace. I think that's the most that I got from Rick too, because I already had, because I'm an ex drug addict. I was a drug addict for 15 years. Okay, we're not here to talk about me. I'm just telling you that Christ changed me, and like Rick, like he would talk to me, we would share, like, man, we could go on for days talking about the Lord, what he did in our lives. You know what I mean? How he changed him, how he changed me. But most of the important thing that I want to tell you guys right here, right now, is that we all have to put our ducks in a row and receive Christ as Lord and Savior. Don't waste time in thinking about it if you haven't. I'm sure most of you here, or all of you here, are Christians. I'm just telling you that a religion is not going to help you if you're into a religion. But Christ will save you, will change you. And I want to tell you something else. I love you in the love of Christ. Lori, Chelsea, I used to love your dad like crazy, you know it. I'm going to miss him, but most of all, we're going to get to see him again.
Amen.
In '89, and
it was through my brother. I went over to his house and I heard this flaming redheaded guy who was very on and very interesting, held my attention. And so it was just an interesting starting off point, you know, considering through the years where this would go. And just, you know, I mean, we laughed together, checked stuff out, business opportunities, argued, disagreed on some stuff, no big deal, you know, this is just this, it's a brick, I guess. And, but yeah, definitely a trip, definitely unique. And I was always interested in people that, you know, if they did know Christ in different places he'd go, he'd talk to you, strike up conversations. I think one in particular thing that happened was that I had a vehicle, and I had the vehicle repaired, and the shade tree mechanic had put a turbo head in a non-turbo car, and it broke, and so you know, it was really inconvenient at the time. And I remember getting a call from Rick, talking to him for a little bit, and kind of complaining about the situation, not directly to him, but so I think a day went by and he called me back and says, "Hey," he goes, "you still got a problem with the car?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I got a car you can borrow. You can come over here." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Seriously? That's really cool, man. That'll lift the load. That'll help out, you know, right now." So I went over there and he goes, "Yeah." He's calling. He goes, "I got a Granada for you." And of course, anybody that knows Granadas, you know, it's kind of ha-ha, you know, old cars and stuff. And this is like, I think, 96. The car was sitting in the driveway, and I took another look at it, and I'm looking at this thing, it's white with a black top. Everything's matching around it. I open the door, open the car, black interior, black bucket seats. It's got a, you know, chrome T-shifter over the transmission. Open the hood, it's got a Mustang 302 engine in it, and a heavy-duty transmission and rear end. This thing was set up. And so when I got it and just drove it, it was like, you know, kind of hard not to step on it. So I was just, you know, taking off, listening to the exhaust of this thing going, "This is cool, free car." You know, "Hey, thanks, Rick, this is beautiful." I know, it's a you know, loaner. So anyway, we're having trouble with the mechanic, get some things together, and give another week went by, and I'm like, "Hey, I'll bring it back. I'm sorry, man." I said, "This guy's, you know, taking his time. They're trying to get this part." And finally, they got the part. He goes, "That's all right." He goes, "You need the car longer?" He goes, "Hey, keep the car. You know." And he goes, "I got a good deal on it. I got a deal on it. It's all right. You just, you know, you have the car and just register it." And everything else was like, "Well, thank you. You know, what can I do for you?" You know, we'll go out for lunch or something like that. So, you know, it was cool that through all the business opportunities that you were talking about, and the different winding up on this and winding up on that, and TSI, the phone long distance card sales that he was in, that he I think shot to $53,000 one month. It was the top month. And of course, you know, what goes up, a lot of those network marketing things will go down and plummet, and it did after a little while. But, you know, we were all happy and kind of proud of Rick, you know, he hit that one and knocked out the ballpark. But I appreciate his kindness, his personality, and I sent a little parody over to them. I think 2 nights ago or something like that. It was a little parody about Rick talking to me one time before we left. One day we're going to go and do a couple things and run some errands, and he was talking about rapping, and he did this little thing. I said, "That's not a rap," and so it was kind of funny. He was just, you know, being Rick, typical humor that Rick had and everything else, but definitely funny. I mean, you know, he didn't have to be a stand-up to be funny. This guy just had a twist on life and people, and it was interesting, and a lot of times blunt, forced, but you know, he got used to that, so you know, wear a helmet, whatever else. But I really do appreciate the chance to know Rick and Lori and Chelsea and through the years and various adventures and stuff like that. It was truly an experience that I'll never forget either, and kind of take a page of reaching out and just saying something to somebody somewhere, even if you feel like you're uncomfortable, you know, to affect somebody for Christ. Just, you know, say something or pray for them or pray with them. And I've done that a few times with a few different people too, and believe me, it's interesting how people will react when you stop and you pray for them right there. I've had people almost start to cry. So it's awesome. You just gotta go beyond your comfort zone. And I guess the moral of the story is Rick helped me go beyond my comfort zone because he made me uncomfortable sometimes. And it was good for good reason that he did, and I appreciate it because he's a wild man. And we've all seen it. I mean, I know we've all seen him, and just appreciate him for it too. So thank you for letting me share a little bit of that. And I'm sure there's other people who have stories too, and it'd be fun to hear those as well. Thank you very much.
For a little while. And how I met him was Brent, and I can't remember his name, and you, Brent had called me and asked me if I wanted to play golf as a fourth. So he, I met, he goes, oh, you can ride with Rick. And, you know, we shook hands, and I heard Brent snicker, and I'm like, okay, so, all right, whatever, you know. So we're playing golf, and I'm not playing all that great, you know, and we're on that 14th hole here at Cottonwood, and I hit this drive that, well, wasn't where it was supposed to go. And I kind of used the Lord's name in vain, and he got back in the car because he's driving, and he says, Don, God couldn't even have saved that ball. So we got into the conversation, and the rest of the day I played pretty good because I wasn't thinking about golf, I was talking to him the whole time. So he had a way of making you feel pretty, you know, at ease when you weren't having that great of a day. So, yeah, he was a good guy. Thank you, Don.
Like a piece of wax on the table, and a spider came crawling into the wax, and his legs were stuck there, and he was dying. So Rick worked almost an hour trying to release that spider. He poured hot water. Oh, he tried everything, and he goes, well, when we wake up in the morning, the spider will probably be okay. No, the spider was dead. He loved animals, and he talked to the animals all the time. And we didn't have an animal, but, you know, we did in the beginning of our marriage. But we never.
There wasn't a holding plate, but there wasn't a bunny, or a goose, or a duck, that Rick, what the hell, give me baby. He was always talking to the animals. He was talking to them as Frank was chasing them away.
I know.
Right, Frank?
I'd say, Rick, is that your goose?
I knew Lori way before I knew Rick, and when Lori was dating somebody at the time, can I tell him what he called me? Well, anyway, Lori was dating African American at the time when I met her, and he wasn't very good to her, and so, you know, later on, my mom and I, we met Lori, we just fell in love with Lori, and she was, at the time, can I say, that you were, I don't know how much to share about your life, but it's all intertwined, you know. So she was in a, what do you call that? A cult. Okay, well, let's just call it. And they changed her name, and it was just this really convoluted situation. And my mom and I were praying so much for Lori that she got out of it, and it was just beautiful. And then we all were going to church together, and then we were praying like mad that Lori would leave this gentleman, and she would find somebody Christ-like, a godly person. And Rick came to the church, and he was just he had natural leadership skills. You know, leaders are not born, they're made. Is it nature or nurtured? I think it's nature that's nurtured, really. So, you know, he just naturally would just be talking to people and just getting an audience, just commanding around him. And Lori just really liked him, and they started dating, and we were like, wow, this is amazing, right? So that was like 37 years ago. All this time has gone by. And I remember at the time I was like, I don't know about him, Lori. We just gotta really pray and ask God that if this is the right person. And it was, obviously. All these years later, they're still together, and they still not only loved each other, but they still liked each other. And that's so powerful in any marriage, any relationship, is that you can love somebody. I'm a family crisis counselor, and let me just say, people say they love each other all the time and punch each other in the face. So, like, love is not enough, right? Respect is where it's at. So, I felt that they had a very good relationship, and they liked and loved each other until the bitter end, till all the way to the end. They were so close. And I just love the fact that Rick could make you believe what he was talking about. And he talked about Jesus so much. I was already saved, so he didn't have to save me. But anything else that he brought in, I went to Singapore with him, part of one of his shenanigans with with phone cards, you know, Rick, myself, and Dr. Galooz, which I don't think is here, right? Anyways, and so I would be over their house almost every day. I mean, Chelsea hadn't come in the picture yet. And, you know, but lots of praying, lots of laying on hands, lots of healing for people. I mean, it was just always a scenario and a house of worship, a house of praise, a house of ministry, constantly at your house, that one over by, you know. And I lived with the people who lived in the Amityville Horror. I don't know if you remember that movie, but those people were Christians and they went to my church and I lived with them. So Lori was down the street and I would just go back and forth at her house, always over there. And then when Chelsea came, I've known Chelsea since she was this big. And so it was just a tremendous time with them. They were such dear, dear friends because they knew the Lord so much and they talked it and walked it so much. And I just loved going over there. I was there all the time. And Rick and I would get into our situations because we would have little arguments here and there, but nothing is worth it. Nothing is worth being so upset that you ruin a relationship. And if you guys are in a situation right now where you have somebody that you're estranged with, please make it right because there's just not enough time, right? And you lose nothing by doing it. Really
Amen to that.
So, you know, I will miss all my conversations with Rick. He was such a great photographer. Oh my gosh. I just love the pictures he would draw and the pictures he would take. And there isn't enough to say in 35 years to put it all in just this little tiny area. But I just will say, you know, I just want to say, Rick, I'm gonna really miss you. You really taught me what it was to be an evangelist for Jesus. You were just no holds barred and you didn't care what people think. And I just really appreciate that about you, all your talents, gifts, callings, and anointings. And I know that you're with Jesus now, and I know that you are looking around and you're seeing all these people here, and you're like, hey, don't be sad. That's why he wouldn't want anyone to be sad, right? He would just be like, eat, drink, and be merry. Not drink, maybe, but maybe
No, drink.
yeah, drink.
$2.
So, anyways, there's so many stories. I just wanted to at least honor him today and keep honoring him for the rest of my life as my friend.
Somebody said a lot of wonderful, touched our hearts a lot. But one of the theme I noticed was the salesman, you know, and his dad always kind of didn't respect that. He had 6 sons, and he's like, his dad was the farthest thing from a salesman. He took after his mother more. And so his dad would say, you're nothing but a used car salesman. You know, he just like wouldn't take what he was saying. And so when the mortuary asked, what do you want to put on his death certificate as an occupation, and I had no idea they asked that kind of question. And my daughter had such a great idea because he was more than a car salesman, way more. So we put minister of the gospel, and they let us do that. He was so proud of his daughter. Our daughter is our only child, and she's a minor. Not a minor in age, but she's a minor that she's got gem mines and turquoise mines, and so he's always so proud of her. And
Like, he never really got it. Like,
Yeah,
if
he's
you
like,
don't go and do it, you don't understand what it means to get a rock out of the earth and make it pretty, you know?
so she's like, he's like, my daughter's into rocks. And he's like, no, it's more than rocks, it's gems and minerals. So, you know, Rick was all about stories and illustrations, and I just thought this really illustrated our lives and what he would want with our lives, because this is like a flawed thing. You don't know what it is. If you're a geologist or something, you kind of can tell, hey, this might be something. And this is a smoky quartz, and this is out of her mind.
That my dad did.
And he dug it. She took us out.
He took him out for Mother's Day.
So this is flawed, this is unpolished, it's not perfect, but that's how we all are, you know? But I believe he ended up a polished soul. You know, he ended up just, at the end, his life was polished, and he would want all of us to be. And this is what
a polished stone looks like. It's just beautiful. So it's like this, and then this with many facets. And we all have a lot of facets, and we today just celebrated some of the facets of Rick. So I just wanted to share that story.
Thank you, Laura.
And thank you for coming, everybody. You'd be shocked that so many people came. You'd be so shocked. Because he basically just said, da-da-da, you know, like I did, da-da.
And it's crazy how many people have said that they were his best friend, and he would never say anybody ever thought of him. Like, he would just probably be like, what? No way. And everybody says that.
Any other stories?
Well, I better
But with my dad, he was able to, with us, he doesn't respect our authority, you know, but I was like watching it, it would always be like scary because I didn't know how my son was gonna react, and I was gonna like witness this little like, you know, butting of heads between them. But like, he loved Grandpa so much that he was like willing to put up with the rules to be with Grandpa, which no kid wants to do that, you know, and like it was just crazy because he doesn't do it for us necessarily, you know, but he would do it for his grandpa because grandpa did have rules, more than I would like typically want. For, you know, I feel like he's a kid, man, come on, you know. But my dad was really like, no, he doesn't need to touch the curtain, just tell him not to touch the curtain, or you know, whatever it was, you know. But Clayton still really, he just, he's only 3.
Who's that expensive?
He doesn't know.
It's $250.
It was so unique that Rick used his authority, and people, I think, they accepted it. You know, just like, you know, we all know
because
Rick.
a lot of people don't have the balls to assert that type of
That's
dominance.
true. That's true. But we all accepted, you know, Rick being alpha. He,
Honestly, I'm hating too.
My mom,
including your
scared
kids.
babies.
You were the shadow to my light. Did you